Good morning. It's been a little while since I've done one of these videos. Probably it's about a week ago now, I think. So when I started this, I had every intention of doing like a daily video log and keep, checking all the, changes, symptoms, things I've noticed, what's good, what's bad. And this last week has just been so full of things that have gone on that I just either haven't, the idea of doing these updates just hasn't been on my mind, it hasn't been on my list, or I felt too tired or overwhelmed or struggling with some of the side effects of what's happened with the medication. So I'm going to try and keep this brief, but I'm not sure I'll be able to. I went up to 50 micrograms last Sunday, and initially didn't really notice any real difference going up from the 30. And I completed my weekly monitoring form that I get sent from the provider. And in there you put your blood pressure, your resting heart rate, your weight, and they ask you certain questions about, how's your mood been, how's your appetite, are you sleeping, that kind of stuff, these kind of fairly standard questions. Because obviously, a big part of the tablets is that they're going to help you with those, and it helps the provider understand or know if there's any kind of intolerable side effects as a result of the medication. As I filled that form out, and I hadn't really noticed any changes going up from the lower dose. And yes, I sent the form in, got a little bit of feedback. Yeah, it looks like you're tolerating the medication well. Great. Well, we'll keep going. And as the week went on, there was just like a series of things that happened. Work, some family stuff, some personal stuff, each of which just felt like, it was like, oh my God, is there, I'm sure everyone can relate, these things always feel like they come in a wave of, my God, one thing after another, come on, give me a break. And then towards the end of the week, I was like, oh, actually, do you know what? I'm really feeling that my anxiety has really crept up. Almost, I think it was quite, like anxiety and depression can be, they kind of can creep up on you. It's not like this big bang necessarily. They can kind of surreptitiously creep up on you, and you don't really notice it as it's happening until you kind of reflect. And yeah, so it was starting, this last week has been quite a struggle, because, when the anxiety starts, you sort of fall back into that pattern of thinking, the self-esteem, the self-belief. Am I, is it me? What's going on? And so I guess that's the importance of the monitoring forms. So obviously on this week, the one I get this week, I will be, putting that information in and hopefully get some feedback from the provider, giving me some advice. Maybe they'll say, as I adjust, it will settle down. But so that's something I'm acutely aware of at the moment, is that my anxiety is heightened. I made I made a big mistake on I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. So with these tablets, it says avoid other stimulants. So main one for me being coffee. Now I haven't avoided coffee. I have dramatically cut it down. I was drinking 4, 5, 6 cups of tea and coffee a day, mostly coffee. So I'd cut it down to like, I'll have a morning coffee and then a cup of tea in the evening. And, it's instant coffee and Yorkshire decaf tea. And that was fine. And then about, sort of midweek time, I went to meet a friend, regular catch up. And it didn't even cross my mind. We got a drink from Costa Coffee, and I had my, I like a mocha every now and then. So I just got, I had a medium mocha. Normally I'd have a large, but, I'll have a medium this time. And, we chatted for an hour and a half. It's quite an intense sort of catch up, talking about a lot of deeply, deep emotional, personal things, largely from the person I'd met. And as they had to go off to take a call, do some work. I kind of had that, and I felt really, my emotional energy felt really drained, which isn't uncommon for me. If I'm, when I'm talking to somebody about important matters, I am invested. I'm absolutely invested in that person in that moment. So that wasn't entirely unusual, but what was unusual was how I was physically feeling. I was absolutely, all my senses, all my, everything was just like, boom, absolutely on fire, firing away, palpitations, this huge amount of energy that I just like, I was like, I've got to do something with this. So I went for a walk, and I kept walking. I had my earpods in, listening to music, and I was walking. I was like, oh my God, I could just keep walking. It's much like, they used to give speed to pilots during the Second World War to keep them awake. They go on these long bombing raids, so speed was a thing that they give them, so keep them alert. And it's just such a huge matter. I was feeling nauseous, I was having palpitations, and it was quite worrying. And yeah, I think I walked possibly for 2.5, 3 hours. Such was my need to get rid of some of this energy. And then, as and that level of energy stayed high for hours. And then as the day went on, as it got to sort of late afternoon, it started to come down a bit. And I went to bed fine. But I woke up the next day and I had nothing. It was like a really bad hangover. Not the necessarily like the headaches you get from a hangover, but that general feeling of the body of just kind of uncomfortable, achy, not wanting to do anything, not wanting, mentally I just couldn't really switch on. And so that was a real stark lesson, that there's a massive difference, or there must be a massive difference in the amount of caffeine in instant coffee that you drink at home and the coffee that you get from these coffee chains. So that's a mistake I will not be repeating. And as I say, it was just completely subconscious. The thought never even entered my head of, I shouldn't have this coffee because it's the strength is so much greater. So anybody who is on titration or starting titration or coming towards it on the waiting list, I absolutely do not go and drink coffee from any of these chains. The strength is just too much to handle on these stimulants. And I guess the same could be said for those who have these home coffee makers. We use what we call proper coffee. Really, I would advise just stay away from it. So yeah, that was the huge, big lesson for me this week. There's a real reason why they say to stay away from these things. So I guess it just amplifies the effect of the medication. The downside, the other downside, of that midweek thing, all the stresses that have happened this week, and there have been, kind of more than you'd hope would appear in a week. Something terrible happened on Thursday evening. That involved my wife, my son, and a car, which left them both very upset. And my wife came in and clearly upset by what it was. But in true ADHD mode, bang, I'm cool as a cucumber, right? Okay, I'll deal with this. Let's get on, bum, bum, bum. And I dealt with this situation, which I think for a lot of people would have been difficult. But it's that thing. It's like, we talk about the downside of ADHD and how it can really impact your life negatively. But we don't talk about how some of these traits can be so helpful in certain situations, and just that ability to know what to do when everybody else is panicking, when when it's all kicking off. In that moment, it's like, no, I'm fine. You can deal with everything rationally and in real control. But then, in day-to-day life, when you've just got to, run the household or go to work, it's, your ADHD can be all over the place and really, really inhibit what you want to do. This week has been really tough, and has, as I mentioned earlier, the going up the dose, I didn't really notice any, additional benefits of the increased dose, which was disappointing. And then obviously as at the end of the week, as I recognised that this sort of the anxiety was creeping up, it's really hard to pinpoint whether it's because of the medication or because of all the things that are happening at the moment. So I think it is because of the medication, but time will tell as things, as the weeks progress. Hopefully all these things that are going on will calm down, sort themselves out, and I'll be able to have a clearer definition or clearer idea of what the medication's doing versus the effects of my ADHD and anxiety. So appetite, my weight has gone down a little bit. I've probably gone down about 6 pounds in 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks? 3 weeks? Yeah, it's been about, it's 2 weeks. So it's gone down about 6 pounds in 2 weeks. And I largely attribute that to the fact I'm not snacking, not eating between meals. My appetite at mealtime is lower. I am hungry at meal times, but I don't eat as much as I would do. And my focus on food has really dropped. I used to be thinking about food all the time. It's like, what's in the cupboard? What can I eat? What do I want for lunch? What do I want for breakfast? I've had dinner. What's in the cupboard? Oh, it's the evening. I'll sit down. We've got any sweets? Got any chocolate? I genuinely haven't had any of that, and that's I count that as a real positive. And I will say to anybody who's starting medication, I think I said it earlier on, is we all hope that it's going to be this magic bullet that's going to solve all our problems. Currently, it's for me it's certainly not. It's taking into account the side effects, taking into account the impact of taking the medication, having that kind of a clearer mind. The thing that I've probably started focusing on is obviously having this so much more space to process things or focus on certain things. It's brought up a lot of stuff. So instead of having that mind wandering from one thing to the next and the next and the next, it's like you kind of, it's quite easy to lock onto something and you kind of put all your attention onto it, but you don't have all the answers all of a sudden. Everything isn't fixed, and I think in the first video I did, I showed you that huge sheet of paper that comes with your tablets, and there was I couldn't find it at the time, but there was a sentence in there that said, the ADHD medication should be used as part of treatment, so support, counselling, therapy, whatever, and that's the bit that's missing, and I think that is possibly one. I think it's a huge letdown, a huge failure on the part of the NHS and these other providers, is that you're given the medication and essentially sent on your merry way without that additional support. Filling in a feedback form once a week about your symptoms and anything you're noticing isn't the same as therapy or counselling or one-to-one support. And as the medication goes on and you start to sort of look at things and how you've behaved, how you're behaving now, because people like me, and there are an awful lot, we've always felt like there's always been a thing, I'm not reaching my full potential. I'm not achieving what I could and should be. And that's really hard to deal with. And I know this is probably more emotional, more deeper than I intended this video to be, but I really think it's so important. It's just such a, you get these tablets which clear up a lot of the difficulties of ADHD. Keep saying, it's that space, having that space in your head. But you need somebody to talk to. You need somebody who understands. You need somebody who can coach you, support you, because those thoughts are still there, those memories are still there, those triggers are still there, and there is no, you're just left to deal with them on your own. Now, I'm fortunate in that I've got a friend who I do the podcast with, Angela, who is brilliant. We're very supportive of each other, and it's a very well-balanced relationship, in that we both bring different things to our friendship and to our working relationship. And Angela's she has this wonderful ability of listening, first and foremost, not judging, not trying to give you all the answers, but to challenge the way that you're thinking, challenge the thoughts I'm having in terms of self-esteem, ability, confidence, and to and to a large degree rationalize the irrational thoughts that you have when you're on this new path, on this medication that's opened a new door that you've walked through, kind of into this unknown world. And as I say, I'm very fortunate that I can call Angela and we can have a 10-minute chat chat or a 2-hour conversation about all and everything. But a lot of people don't have that, which is where I really do think that having somebody assigned to you, a support, a counsellor, a therapist, a peer, some sort of peer support, when you're on titration is crucial. It's because you need, if you had a weekly check-in with somebody where you could have a proper conversation, a half hour, an hour consultation, just talking through everything that you're feeling, the changes, the experiences, how you're trying to come to terms with your past, and very importantly and key to focus on is the future, because a lot of ADHDers, I put myself firmly in this group, is we talk about feeling lost, that we have this untapped potential, and that is huge. I mean, that for me is probably one of the things that really stoked my depression, was this, what am I going to do? What is my future? Because if it's like this, if it's going to be this struggle every day, this was before I knew I had ADHD. If it's this every day, what's the point? And I'm not depressed anymore, thankfully. My anxiety is normally in check, other than this last week's flare up. But having somebody to talk through options, what's available out there, because it's a huge world with limitless possibilities. But we've already been held back by our undiagnosed condition, and to then be left alone, it's just like, well, which way do I go? What do I do? What do I do? Which do I do? What shall I do? And so little things like having that. I'm not even sure it's a therapist, because therapists can really help you deal with the trauma of the past, and I wouldn't discount that in any way, because a lot of who we are today is based on who we are, our experiences, events that have happened to us, how we've been treated, how we've treated others, and we are a reflection of that at this moment in time. And so that can help with what I call baggage, the baggage that we carry, the load that we bear, but it doesn't prepare you for the future. And so then having, I'm not even sure what I would title it. I wouldn't call it a job or a career advisor or a career guide, although those skills or knowledge would be hugely beneficial, just to guide you, at least make you aware of some options, because like me, you go, right, I need a job, I need to change my job, I want to do something different, and we have a habit of, because of the low self-esteem that's kind of grown within us like a cancer, you don't think you're worthy, you don't think you're capable, and I hear people, I've had feedback from people, a lot of feedback from people saying, talking about the skills and how good I am at these things, and which you generally don't recognize. But it's like, okay, well, what do I do with that? How do I use that in a career? So anyway, that's just a thought. That's just something that I think, if you are going to start titration and you're not provided with a therapist or a counsellor, or any form of support, and you don't have that person in your life, I know it's an expense, but I think it's an investment. If you get yourself a counsellor, look for an ADHD trained counsellor or coach, or people who have lived this journey, who are going through it or have gone through it, and can work with you on a level of empathy that you wouldn't get from somebody who hasn't walked the path. I absolutely do it. I would absolutely do it. It will be worth every penny. It will speed things up. That's for sure. Us ADHDs, we tend to be very independent. We don't like to ask for help, but that ends up with a lot of wasted time. You lose a lot of time looking into things, trying things, going down the wrong path, and I think a big part of that is that we don't address what's in front of us, and so I think having somebody, having a coach, having a therapist who can look at you, listen to you, and see it from your perspective, but also from somebody who's lived that life, who's gone through that journey, who can see your potential, who can see your skills, and unstick you, get you unstuck, is a huge investment, and it will save you a lot of time and emotion and energy. So yeah, I would say don't be put off by the cost, because it will be a lot more expensive if you don't, in terms of paying for courses that you'll never use, loss of earnings, lower incomes, any other number of ways that that people with neurodivergence or ADHD, it's called the neurodivergence tax. So yeah, that's so I think this video is actually a really good summing up of the ADHD, undiagnosed ADHD to a point, titration, the journey of titration, and just these things you may never have thought about, and it's the overall. I mean, this isn't the overall tone. This isn't the tone I set out for, but as often I do with videos, when I sit there, it just flows, and so this is where we are. So I'm going to have a call with Angela now and talk through what we're doing, and she will give me some pearl of wisdom, as she always does, and rationalise some of the things that I'm experiencing. So the only other thing is I moved up to the higher dose yesterday of 60. I'm on that for 2 weeks. So far, the anxiety hasn't got any better. Felt a little spaced out yesterday. Not too bad today. Feeling more focused today. I do look tired though. But I'm sleeping well, so I'm going to bed at a good time every night, and I'm being woken. I don't wake up in the morning; I'm getting woken in the morning. So the sleep's good. Despite some of the things I've spoken about today, I am feeling positive. That there is a benefit to the medication, and there is. That there can be a very positive future for us late diagnosed ADHDers. It's not too late to make a change, but I think we all need a guiding hand when it comes to that. I would say don't try and do it alone, unless you feel you're capable of, in which case, all power to you, fantastic. But for those who are stuck, I think look for that assistance. Look for that torch bearer, the one who's lighting up the darkness. And on that note, watch your space, because Neuro and Beyond is going to be moving in a slightly different direction. So make sure you follow us and jump aboard should the opportunity feel right. But otherwise, I don't know when I'll do the next video. I'll see how the week goes. It might be I'll just do a weekly one, and that seems to be quite quite a nice fix. I think trying to do a daily one becomes a bit of a chore. I said that in the last one. And I think having a week in between actually gives me a good amount of time to really reflect on what the medication is doing, how it's helping me, how it's helping me deal with stressful situations, life in general. So I think I might continue in that vein, but I make no promises because I've got ADHD after all. Anyway, have a good week and catch up soon.